And here we are. Good morning. Good morning. Let's see if everything works. It looks like it works. Oh, just let me know if you can hear my voice, if everything is fine, so that we can start immediately our new phenomenal lesson. I will just put the chat in here. Okay. So just give me a sign if everything is fine, if you can hear my voice, it seems interrupted. Voice not in the video. No. Why? Give me a second. So, let me check, because this morning, let me see. It sounds terrible. Let me see if I work, if I talk, give me 3 seconds, I will fix everything. Okay, let's see here. Let's see now. Let's see if it works better. Let me check. Oh, I think it is like it is cracking the voice. Is it true? Five seconds. I'll be back. Okay? Give me 5 seconds. Don't go anywhere. Okay, this is last try. Let me know if you can hear anything. I think I did it. There is a little bit of lag between when I speak and when you hear me, but I can survive with this for now, because if not, we won't do anything today. It's okay? Okay, let's start. And because then I have to shut down everything and restart. So, today we need to start talking about lights. That is extremely important. And lights are basically next step to be ready to create our renderings. And after lights, we need to use also cameras to have basically the entire control on how the rendering will be ready for your final presentation. To work with lights, first of all, I need to show you some very basic settings that you have to make in your viewport just to see your light directly into the viewport without clicking rendering each time that you want to do some adjustment in your light source. Also, light itself will be simply an object that you can create in 3ds Max. So if I just place a light into an empty scene, we won't see anything special. Light requires an environment, requires object to be seen, because what we see will be the effect of light. So what I'm going to do now is just a preparation in order to let you understand then how light will work. So first thing that I will do is I will basically build a very simple set that would be like an empty room, and I will make it also white, so that will be neutral, and we can then understand the certain properties of light, like for example the color of light and stuff like this. So for now I'm just making a very basic empty room by using a couple of boxes, and the only attention that I am using is that dimensions of this room are more or less realistic. So this room will be in real units. It will be fine. It won't be too small or too big, cause if not, even light behavior may look wrong. So I will just place something inside the room. I mean, nothing fancy, nothing complex. It is just an empty room with this kind of thing that should look like a table. Perfect, like a coffee table. And then I will put the ceiling by using Shift and Move. And I am almost done. I just want to make all these objects white, and because we have studied materials, this will take really a couple of seconds to be done, so that I will go to my material editor and I will simply make my own white material from scratch, just because it is faster than searching for the right material, being sure that it's white, and so on and so on. And also I make it roughness 1, simply because I want this material to be matte. I mean, just to make it super fast. And then I select all my objects and I apply this material to the entire selection. Boom! Like that. Okay. So this is my simple starting setup. That is, I'm using a neutral white room. I need to make one small step before being able to see lights into my viewport. That is, I need to change one small parameter in my viewport. That would be here. Look, I need to go in this area of my viewport where I see the word standard. I have to click here, and from this menu I need to change 2 small parameters. That are, I have to go to lighting and shadows, and I need simply to change this to the one that is called illuminate with scene lights. And basically I have to click it here once, and this will be my first step. Now, where it was written standard, I can see that it is written user defined, simply because we are customizing our viewport style. So what I have to do now is clicking again here, where now it is written user defined. I have to click again on lighting and shadows, and now I see that I've set it to illuminate with scene lights. But second parameter that I need to check is also I need to check shadows, and I will left click here. Perfect. Right now the scene looks a little bit weird because it just shows us these black things, but this is because now there is not our own light source placed inside our project. So what we have to do now is, now we are ready to create our light, and also whatever we do in whatever parameter we change to inside our light source, we will see the effect of our adjustments in real time inside our viewport. So, just to recap, in order to precisely work with lights, you just need to be sure that by clicking here, you have these 2 parameters enabled. They must be both enabled. Illuminate with scene lights and shadows. Okay? Yes? No? Tell me, were you able to do it or not? Let me check the chat. Just let me know. Perfect. Okay, so let's move on. And now, where are lights? That is very interesting because lights are simply objects that you can create in 3ds Max. So we need to go to the tab that is called Create. We need to see that there is this third family here that is called lights. So we click here and we will see 3 different buttons. First 2 buttons, the ones that are called target and free light, are, let's say, same exact thing, and they are both tools to simulate inside the 3ds Max artificial light sources. So whenever you want to simulate a certain lamp, no matter which kind of lamp you want to simulate, you must use free light or target light. What is the difference? Let me also open this. Which is the difference between free and target light? We will see that it is not into how we set them or how they work, but the only real difference will be this. A free light will be a light that we place inside our project, and then we will be able to move it wherever we want, and we will be also able to rotate the light wherever we want. So if our light has a direction, we can move the light to change where the light starts, and we will be able to rotate it in order to change where light is projecting the radiation of light. And this is the free light. Target light is simply a light that has the direction that is managed by a secondary point. So a target light will be simply a light that has same exact parameters than free light, with one small difference in how we use it. That will be, we will be able to move light source. We won't be able to rotate it to change where light is projected, while we will be able to move the target point of our light to change where light is projecting is light radiation. So technically is a good way to understand when you have to use one or the other, simply by knowing that free lights are more generic lights. So when you want to make like pendant lamps, bulb lamps, LED strips, just to make ambient lights, you have to always use free lights. But if you are making a project instead, and you want to simulate like there is a spotlight that is illuminating a certain object, and in general this happens if your project, let's say, is about a retail shop a museum, and stuff like this. So imagine that here there is a sculpture or a painting, and you want to be sure that a spotlight illuminating that specific object. So in this case, it would be easier to use a target light. But if you need also, let's say, a pendant lamp that is just here and it is illuminating the ambient in a more generical way, in this case, this will be a free light. So this is the only difference between this button here and this button here. But they both are meant to simulate artificial light sources. Maybe not today, but there is a third button in here that is called the sun positioner. Well, that is for simulation of natural light. So when we want to simulate the sun at a certain hour of the day, at a certain day of the year, the season, and so on, perfect. We have to use that tool. And as I said, probably today we will be able to see only artificial lights, but into explaining light, there will be one last thing that we need to study, that will be exposure. That is is basically a photography concept. That is basically how our virtual camera, when we make a rendering, reacts to the amount of light that is placed inside our scene. So when we will be able to prepare everything for our final renders, that, believe it or not, it will happen next week. So when we have completed light explanations, we need to work with two aspects. That will be, we need to balance the amount of light, and we need to balance it with the exposure that our camera will have. But exposure probably is not going to happen today, so we will see it next week. But these are elements that we need to understand that are all related to working with lights. So let's start with the basic. So I will start by using a free light, and the way it works is very simple. I have just to click free light. I have to place a free light somewhere inside my project. So I will just click outside my room right now, and with one single left click, I create my light. And you see that only because we have correctly set our viewport before, we can see that the shadows and the way that our room is illuminated depends on where this light has been placed. And if we want really to check if this is true, we can simply start by moving this light. Let's say I will move it up, and this is still outside my room. And then if I want, I can also move the light inside the room, and you will see that in real time you can see the effect of how your light is interacting with objects that are in your project. Okay? Is this working for all of you? Let me know. Let me check. So let's see. Perfect! I'm so sorry that there is this small lag today, but I will fix it later. Anyway, so now let's see this. When I place my light, I can see from now several things, like I can see that my light is correctly projecting a shadow. I can see that my light is very bright. I can see that my light, from where my light source is placed, light is going up, down, right, left, back and forth. So the direction of light is happening all over the space, and I can clearly see that the color of this light is white. So when I select my light and I go to the Modify tab, these main aspects are parameters that I have to deal with when I want to set my light setup in a project. So parameter number 1 is you need to check if your light is projecting a shadow, because if it is not, that will be highly wrong. And you can clearly see that down here there is the shadow of my table, and if you don't see any shadow in your project, be so nice simply to check in the Modify tab. When you select a light, be so nice to check if shadows are on, and they must be on, because in reality it doesn't exist a light that won't create shadows. I mean, it is impossible. And also, if you manually set this option to on, you need also to set this parameter to be ray traced, because this is basically the algorithm that 3ds Max uses to create realistic shadows. So in here there is nothing that you should change or imagine. Shadows must be like this. So shadows must be always on, and they must be always ray traced. Always. Because if not, result of your renderings will be completely weird. So let's see. Someone says, I have shadows ticked, but I'm not seeing any shadows. Object have either black or white, no shadow. So check twice. First, shadows must be on. Second, it has to be ray traced shadows. Third, just in case, check again here. Go again to the menu that is called now user defined. Go again to the area that is called lighting and shadows, and be sure that you have check shadows in here, so that there is a check mark in here. Do it and let me know. Great! So now you should be able to see also these projected shadows. Okay? And if this is true, we are ready to go to our next and unbelievably important parameter, because Parameter that we find just below shadows is an extremely important parameter that is called light distribution. And what light distribution does is it sets the direction that light has from our light source. So, each time that we create a new light, and this is by default happening, each 3ds Max sets our distribution to what is called uniform spherical, and you can see it here. Uniform spherical is a way to tell that my light is right now here, and the direction that the radiation of light has from this point is a sphere of light. And it happens in all 3 dimensions. So it is happening like this, like that. And we can check that this is true simply because from where our light is placed, we can see that light is projected up, right, left, down, forward, back, and in all the space. This is what is called a uniform spherical distribution. And believe it or not, this is a light distribution that is real technically for 2 types of lamps in reality there are. This is real if we want to simulate a bulb lamp that has a spherical distribution, and trust me, this is also true for a tube lamp. The only difference will be that the tube lamp distribution, beside being a perfect sphere, will be simply scaled and slightly deformed according to how long the tube light is. But it has to be used in these 2 simulations. So when we want to simulate tube lamps and when we want to simulate bulb lamps. But for example, when we want to simulate an LED strip or that has something like this, there are a lot of LEDs, but they are attached to a support, and this kind of each LED has a distribution that is directional, so it has a more specific orientation, not very defined, it is very wide, but at least LED won't project light on the back of its support. And if we want to make these, we need to change our distribution to the parameter that is called uniform diffuse. Uniform diffuse is, believe it or not, exactly how LED lights are working. There is a distribution that is very wide, but it has a direction. So it basically is like half sphere of light. And now, for example, I can show you that because if I rotate a uniform spherical light, it doesn't change anything. But if I need, I can now start not only moving this light to check where my light is projected, but now it makes also sense to rotate my free light in order to set the direction of my beautiful free light. Okay? But it is just a overall direction because the uniform diffuse is very wide, and basically it is like in front of the lamp it will project light, behind the lamp it won't project light. But there is last distribution type that I want to show you. There is something that is even more directional and more specific for creating accents in our project. There is a light distribution that is called spotlight. A spotlight is basically a cone of light. Okay? And again, we can both move this light just to set where it is placed, so where the spotlight is placed, but also we can rotate the light in order to change where the spotlight is projecting its radiation. Okay? For example, I will show you later that if we have specific objects, let's say on the table or on a shelf, and we want to be sure that a spotlight is always oriented on our object, spotlight is a perfect light to be used with target light tool rather than being a free light, because with a free light we need a lot of adjustments to be sure that our spotlight is, like perfectly oriented on our table. But if we are using spotlights like architectural spotlights, so those that you can find into false ceilings, to corridors and stuff like that. So if our spotlight is just pointing down and doesn't really change anything, if we use free or target light, so let's say we have our spotlight into the ceiling pointing down, we can still use spotlight as a free light. But a spotlight that has a shape that is a bit more interesting than a sphere or half sphere, the spotlight only has additional parameters that appear only when you set the distribution to spotlight. So if you check, now that I have selected spotlight, I can see that this additional menu popped up inside my 3ds Max. So basically what 3ds Max is telling us is that with these two numbers called hotspot and fall off, we can change the width of our spotlight. So we can make it larger or narrower. But why there are two numbers? The reason is very simple, and it is this. The spotlight has a center cone, that is the one that I am highlighting now. This cone here is where I have 100% of my light radiation. Then, and I will change the color, then I can see that from here light starts fading away, and from light to darkness there is this secondary cone. This secondary cone is the one that is called fall-off. So, if I want, I can, and this is called fall-off. This one is called hotspot. And I can change both. So, by changing these two numbers, yes, make it start from your AutoCAD project, but you can make it nicer. Okay, so if you think you can make it better, but it has to start from your AutoCAD project. It doesn't have to be something completely different. Okay? So, I was saying, with the hotspot, you change this center, more illuminated part of your spotlight. With fall-off, instead, you basically choose how wide fading area will be. So you can make a more stage kind of light if you keep the fall-off and the hotspot very close together. So imagine you have like the table and you want to reveal just the table corner and not the entire room. While if you want to see a bit more of the environment, not only you can make the spotlight larger, but even the fall-off can be wider to include more environment, just with less light intensity in your rendering. Okay? And this is what is the parameter of light distribution. Okay? Till here? Let me know. Yes? No? Maybe? Let me check. Perfect. Okay, so now let's see something more. Before showing you other two light parameters, I want simply to show you that light in 3ds Max is just an object like any other object. So when we see that, perfect. So when we see that we can move it or rotate it, we need simply to understand that we can also shift and move it. So if I want to make more than one lamp in my project, I don't need each time to create it, adjust it, create it, adjust it. I can simply, let's say, press Shift, then move my object, and even if this is a light, I can still use copy and instance features that I have in 3ds Max. So let's say I make these 3 spotlights. I have made them as instances, so whatever I change, even into light, it happens same things. So whatever I change into my spotlights, they will all change together like instances. Okay? If I change the color, now I will show you if I change the intensity, if I change whatever I change in my lights, it will affect all my instances. As well as, if I want, let's say, not to change both elements, I can even make copies. And now I have, for example, that this left light is independent from my right lights. Okay, so this is a copy, those are instances, and I can manage. Now, for example, I can make this copy, so this duplicate, but I will make instances. And why doing this? Simply because now on the left side I have instances that are different from right side instances. Okay? So even if I'm working with lights, it is still true that I can make instance copies, rotate, shift and move, shift and rotate, and all these beautiful things. I have made this additional step first to show that even if they are lights, you can still use this feature. But also because now, after understanding light distribution, so the shape and to be more precise, the direction that lights has, I want to show you this next parameter that is called color. Color of light is a parameter that can be changed, let me tell you, in two very different ways. One way will be more precise, more technical. One way instead will be more free, and it will give you more space for creativity. Because way number one, the way that you can also find in order to simulate real lamps is you can select your light, you can go to the parameter that is called color, and you can check this setting that is called Kelvin. Okay? Kelvin is a unit that technically, to be slightly more precise, should be called like this, and it is Kelvin degrees. That by default is a temperature unit, and I won't bother you with the technical explanation, but it is also used into light science. And there is whenever you buy a lamp, there is a parameter that is called color temperature of light. And you will see that whenever you buy a lamp, you will find a number with the K next to it. This is light color, or also called color temperature. This parameter is a parameter that has a limited range of color according to its value, and Kelvin degrees is a parameter that starts from 1000 K till, if I remember, 10,000 K. And according to the number that you set, from 1000K the light is perfectly red, then the more you increase this value, the light will change by being limited in these tones. There are from red, it becomes orange, yellow, then white, then slightly bluish, then blue. That's it. Okay? And you can check it, because if you simply decrease these 1000, boom, you will see that your light will become red. And then if you increase it, you will see that it becomes orange, then yellow, then yellowish, then whitish, like milky. Then at a parameter that is 6500, it would be pure white. So here. But if we increase more, then the light will turn to blue. It's 20,000, sorry, not 10,000, till 20,000. Okay? This is a technical way to change light. And when I say technical, it's because, look, if you go to, for example, a website like this, that is Philips, that makes lamps, no? And you go to specifications of a, if you want to, look, I will also copy and paste, just same exact web page that I'm viewing if you want to check it. But if you go here into technical specifications of your lamp, you can find a lot of written things. And if you notice, in here there is something called color temperature, and the color temperature is specified with this number here. That is the exact color that this light makes. So if you want to make a realistic project and you want to tell your client, look, I'm going to use Philips LED reflector, blah, 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 you go to your 3ds Max, you set your Kelvin degrees to 2700, and believe it or not, light color emitted by those lamps will be exactly this very yellow, dark, yellow warm color. And if you notice also, in that page, it is also clearly written that is warm white. Okay, so it gives you this kind of warm, cozy atmosphere. Okay? And if you look for other lights, just look another one. Let's say cool white. Let's see what happens if I choose, instead of warm white, a cool light. I go to specifications. And the color of light, you can see that is a lot higher. It is 4000K. So if I want to try this one, I type 4000K, boom, and it would be this kind of yellowish tint, and so on and so on. Okay? Just to show you how you can technically change the color of light and having an extremely realistic result in your projects. But if you know, nowadays there are also lights that can have whatever RGB color. So we are not limited in this spectrum of lights. And if you want instead to simulate RGB colors, I will do from these other sides. In that case, you are 100% free to choose the tint of your light, and this happens by clicking instead inside this rectangle here. That is called filter color. What you have to do is you simply click there and you can give your light whatever RGB color you want. So I click here, I make it purple, and you will see that your lights will be purple. Or you like green? Perfect. Or blue? Phenomenal. Or dark green? Okay. And according to the saturation, the illumination, and the hue, so according to the saturation there is more white or more colored. The light, so it will be darker or brighter. And the hue, so you can change the tint. You can give your lights whatever color you need, like an RGB color. But it would be just less technical, slightly less precise than simulating a Kelvin degrees. But more free, so you can also use your creativity. So how much is natural light? Natural light changes each hour of the day. I don't know if you know that, but natural light technically doesn't mean anything, because at morning light is bluish, at 1 light is white, in the afternoon light is yellow, then it becomes orange, then after orange it suddenly turns to blue, then it is night, and then again an early morning there is 15 minutes of blue light, then it is red, orange, yellow, then white, then yellow, and so on and so on. Technically, sunlight at a certain hour of the day is described as daylight. It is 5,500 K. That is almost white, almost white. It has just a, like a tiny drop of yellow, but is barely visible. But what is called daylight, it is 5,500 K. Pure white light instead is 6,500. But those are lights that you can find into museums, into photography workshops and stuff like that. But what is called daylight, not natural light, daylight is 5,500 K. Okay? So just to answer your question in a slightly more precise way. Okay? Was that clear? Perfect. So look, just for example, just to play by playing with colors. Look, I will just add another light that I want to put underneath the table. Okay. And I will set these like an LED strip. So I will set these like, what is here? Uniform diffuse, so that it goes just underneath the table. Then I would change the filter color to a very deep dark purple. Perfect. And then maybe I can change this color. I will make it green. Or this one, I will make it a little bit more blue. Perfect. And then you can place also as many lights that you want. So I will place one, I will place another copy here, another instance. And you can start playing with your lights in order to being able to give your project a certain mood, a certain atmosphere, rather than just the shape of furniture and dimensions of rooms and stuff like this. Okay? Just to let you know how interesting working with light is in 3ds Max. If this is clear, I want to show you another extremely important parameter that is called intensity. Intensity is a number that is written here that is simply explaining you how bright, how strong light itself will be. And you need simply to see that is the behavior of intensity. It is very simple. That is, the higher this number is, the stronger light becomes. Look. And if I go really high, it simply becomes super bright. And if I make it also with a white color, you will see these even better. So, let me decrease it a lot. So this is what intensity does. I mean, it's a very simple concept. That is, the higher this number is, the stronger light becomes. So the only really interesting aspect of these parameters that I want to explain is why there are these options here called LM, CD, LX. These are basically simply three different units to explain light intensity. Imagine this, just to make a quick example. If you want to measure length, you can use centimeters, but you can also use inches, no? But both units are about measuring the length. So if I have, let's say, 10 point or 11 centimeters to describe a length, let's say this would be more or less like 4 inches. But we are talking about the same thing. So it is just a different way to call this object that is long like that. Same thing happens for intensity. For light intensity, there are 3 different units that you may find. There are lumens, candles, and lux at a distance of 1 meter. There are just 3 different units, but all these 3 units are for intensity. So, simply, what you have to do is, when you go to a website again, and you want to read how bright, how strong a lamp is, you read technical specifications, and according to the parameter that is written there, you will simply choose if you want to use LM, that is lumens, so this is LM, or you can find candles, and symbol is CD, or looks at 1 meter, and it is called LX. That's it. They are just 3 different units according to which informations you have. For example, if I go back to my Philips website and I want to use this particular lamp, I can see that this number is the one that has LM as units. So it says that this lamp is as bright as this number here. So if I want to try this in my project, that look, this is a very tiny spotlight, the one that technically we find into bathroom mirrors or inside wardrobes or underneath bookshelf. Look, what I will do is, as I said, oops, not this one, is a spotlight. So I will set this one. Let's make white here, but it is written, it is 4000 K, but its intensity, so the brightness, is 275 LM, so lumens. So I go to 3ds Max. I change that I want to use lumens as units, and I type 275. Press enter, and this is the exact simulation of that specific lamp, both from the color point of view and the intensity. Okay? So this is what intensity does. Nothing special, nothing complex, so it's just a number, but you need to choose which units you want to use simply according to which dimensions you can find. Let me tell you, 90% nowadays of technical specifications are using lumens. It has become a little bit more rare to find that you have to use candles or lux. Okay? Till here? Does it work? Let me know. Fantastic. Perfect, I will say. Okay. So, believe it or not, with lights, we have almost done for today. There is one last slightly complex parameter that I want to show you. And because this is a little bit technical, I want to delete all these lights from my project and explaining my last parameter, starting with one light only, just to avoid confusion. Not because you must use one light in your project, but this is just for educational purpose. So look, See this. Last parameter that I want to show you is a parameter that you find underneath. You have to go a little down underneath intensity, and it is a parameter that is called the shape of light. And this is a little bit complex, but the result of using correctly this parameter is outstanding. Because, let's see this. When I set my light and I place it in my scene, I can see something that is a little bit wrong. That is this. I can see that my light is here, and if I connect light to all corners of my table, I can see that the shadow that is projected is geometrically perfect. So this is good. Let's say if I want to cheat on a Lucas sketch, I can simulate light and look, don't tell this to anyone, but if I want, I can quickly do this for a Lucas assignment. That is, I can make my scene in 3ds Max, then I can put tracing paper on my screen, and basically what I have is I can trace my 1-point perspective sketch, and I have these. In my 1-point perspective sketch, I can also sketch the shadow, and this will be 100% accurate, okay? Where is instead the only thing that is not real in light simulation as it is right now? If you look all around you when you have lights, turn it on, you can see that shadows are not as precise as you see there. In reality, shadows have a behavior that is, the closer they are to the object, the darker and more precise they are. But when a shadow is far from the object, so if this edge is very far from the shadow that is projected, in reality, this edge of this shadow should be blurred. And this is a behavior that depends on something extremely important, that is the size of my lamp. In reality, trust me, and you can make examples by yourself, in reality it happens that if a light is very small, so very small, even like a point, it happens that shadows are black and very sharp and defined. But the bigger the light becomes, the softer shadows will be. And if we want to see these also in 3ds Max, to have more realistic result, we need simply to change this last parameter that is called emit light from shape. And see this, when we open this menu, we have several choices, but trust me, you should use them in this specific ways only. That is, you should only use to correctly work, to avoid any issue, to avoid any weird result. You should use these parameters only in these situations. Look, when you use uniform diffuse, you should use only from the menu that appears here. Now I will open again. You should use only sphere or cylinder as shape. Only. All other parameters in combination with uniform diffuse direction of light won't work. As well as if you use uniform, sorry, my bad, cut these last seconds of the video, and I wanted to say uniform spherical. My bad, 100% my bad. But when you use uniform diffuse or spotlight, you must use only rectangle or disc as shape. Believe it or not, these are the only combination of distribution and shapes that will work all the time. Other combinations, no, they won't work. So again, when you make a spherical distribution, you must use sphere or cylinder. So when you want to make a bulb lamp or when you want to make a tube lamp. But when you want to make a LED strip and you use uniform diffuse, an LED strip, for example, is a very thin but long rectangle of light. As well as when you want to make a spotlight is a square or circular light source. Okay? And let's see what it changes even into my preview here. So check how realistic it becomes my simple scene by using uniform spherical distribution and by changing the shape to sphere. Ready for this? 3, 2, 1, go! Look. And you can see that it happens exactly what I was explaining. When the distance between the edge and the shadows is further, the edge becomes blurred. When there is less distance, the shadow is also less blurred. And I said also that this parameter changes according to how big the light is, because when I set a certain shape for my light, I have also the possibility to change the dimension of that shape. So if I make a sphere, I can change the radius of the sphere, and check this. If I make a very small radius, look at the behavior of the shadow. So I make a very small radius, and you will see again that this sphere is so tiny that it is more or less like a point, so the shadow is sharp. But if I make my sphere of light insanely big, look how blurred my shadow will become. Okay? And believe it or not, this is something that you can achieve in real life. You know how? By doing this. If you have a bulb lamp just attached to a wire, you will see that your shadows, because the bulb lamp is relatively small, your shadows will be incredibly black and sharp. But if you go to IKEA and you buy this one, for example, let's see, no, just the paper one, paper, exactly. They are also called Chinese lanterns. They are basically semi-translucent, semi-transparent white paper spheres, but what they do is they simply increase the size of light, and as a result you will have those very, very soft shadows in your environment. Okay, so let's say that is like it is 60 centimeters of light, and if I use it in my room, my shadows will really be like that. Okay? But if I make it as a cylinder, I won't have only radius, because if I change it to cylinder, I will have a radius of my cylinder plus the length of my cylinder. Okay? And again, you will see that shadows will change according to this new shape. So, same thing. If I want to make a spotlight, you will see that with a spotlight this won't work. So, if I want a spotlight, I need to change, according to the distribution, the shape of my light. So let's say I can see that by keeping my shape as a cylinder, can you see that spotlight doesn't even appear? Due to the simple scheme that I showed you before. So if I want to make a spotlight, first I make it as a rectangle, and then I change it as a spotlight. And I have a super realistic look. Simulation of a large square spotlight, or in this case is a rectangular spotlight that has dimensions of 80 by 60 centimeter. And for example, right now I have two of these spotlights just in front of my face. Those are called softbox. So a very big rectangular light is something like that. Okay? But if you want instead to simulate like architectural spotlights, instead you can change these to disc and make it very small, like 5 centimeters, just to have that small, slightly blurred shadow, because spotlights are commonly known for creating more sharp and detailed shadows, but not as fake as a just black line. At least you will get that little interesting blurred edge that will make your project a lot more realistic. Okay? till here? Let me know. Yes, no, maybe, probably. Perfect, because last thing that I want to show you is, as I said at the beginning, the difference between using a free light rather than a target light. I want to show you, when I should use a target light rather than a free one, so that you have an overall but complete amount of information about simulating artificial light sources. Okay? So, in order to make the difference between free and target light, look, I will simply place in my project something that will be the accent of my project. And why not? I will use a teapot. No, I was about to forget one thing, but it is too cool, so I will explain it as well. So look, because now that we know lights, I can also show you a parameter that is into our physical material, a parameter that you can't live without. So I will also create this weird object that is called text plus, simply because it is an object that basically, where is the height here? It is like an extruded text where you can write something that makes more sense than just text plus. Let's say I will write Marco, and I will place this 3D text in that wall here. Okay, so see this. Now in my project I have these additional elements. And check this. I want to make my viewer pay attention to the teapot rather than just the overall room. In that case, I can create a light that would be a target light. But why? Simply because a target light works like this. Look, I created it outside before just to show you how it works. It works by making a first left click, and you have to hold your left mouse. Your first left click is where light is, but when you drag your left button, you will see that you will create this secondary point that will be the target itself. So now I will see that I can move or the light or the target. But a target light is something that makes sense to be used when you make a spotlight. There is a very directional way to create light. So I will select my light and I will make it not a uniform spherical, but I will make it a spotlight. So now look how simple it is to illuminate my teapot, because I will simply move the target and I will place the target, let's say, where the teapot is. If I make this simple step, so I move the target, now look, doesn't matter where I move my light source, but my spotlight will always point at that target that is my teapot in this case. Okay? So this is the only case when you should really use target light. So when you have something specific that you want to focus, and then you can quickly change the position of light to understand where it makes more sense to place your spotlight. Okay? But no matter where I move my spotlight, because I've set the position of my target where the teapot is, it will always point there. And then I can change whatever I need. I can make, let's say, the spotlight a lot smaller, like this mysterious thing in here, okay, so that I will focus my image, the attention of the viewer only in that specific area. Okay? Is it clear what a target light is or not? Because basically it is just that. It has to be used only when you use spotlight, and only when you really want to be sure that the light source is hitting a specific object. Is that clear? Because if this is clear, I want to show you something that will blow your mind about this three-dimensional text that I have created. That is, I mean, just too cool. It would be, and if it works, it would be like fireworks to complete this lesson. That's honestly started really bad with the microphone that wasn't correctly working. So, yes, perfect. So, let's see this last thing that is related to light. That is this. Only when in our project we have also created light, we can also use a material parameter that is extremely interesting, that is called emission. So look, I will make a new physical material that I'm going to apply to the object that is that Marco text. What I will do is I will double click on my new material, and I can set several things. Oh, I haven't read this message before you delete it. Damn. So, see this. The only parameter that I want to change now is this parameter here. The parameter that is called emission. Right now it is 0, but see what it does if, first of all, I apply this to the object that is Marco. And see what happens if I start increasing emission like that. You will see, ready for this? That my object will start glowing. And and into emission I can change with this rectangle. I can change the overall color of this object. Let's say I will make it blue. And it will look like that. With luminance, I will change how bright it will be, but unfortunately this is something that I have to check when I will render my image. But just know, emission is a parameter that will work in your rendering only if in your project there is at least another light. If not, it won't work. And this is why I explain emission in combination with light and not in combination with materials. But now, look here. I will set this as an angle that I want to render. So look, I go up here in my main toolbar and I click this beautiful button that is called Render Production, and I have to check if my Marco sign works. Let's see. It works even a little bit too much, because you can see that everything has become blue in my project, so I have to tweak a little bit my material, where I will set the luminance. Let's say I will try 20 instead of 8500. Unfortunately, I have to make a few tries, but I render it. 20 is a little bit better. I could go, let's say, to 50, but you will see that your object that has a material with the parameter that is called emission applied, it will start glowing, and it will make also this diffuse light next to it. So let's make it 50, and let's see, 50. Maybe a little bit brighter, but nothing more than this. And I will, and I can make a lot of these things. Like I can start putting a, look, that is blue. I can put, let's say, a free light underneath the table here, and for example I will change the color of these. I will make it very orange so that it will contrast the blue of my sign, and I will set that this is a sphere of light, so also that shadows will be very soft, like this. I can keep my main light white. I mean, I can create a very complex light setup. Maybe I should change the intensity also to make it sphere, I said, but the intensity to make it less strong. Something like this. So when I make my rendering, my picture will start looking, so the yellow is a little bit too strong again. Want to change the intensity, very soft, has to be just an effect. Okay, I render again, and I start by having an image that has a lot of contrast and points of interest. I have my Marco glowing light sign behind. I have the focus on my teapot. I have a nice contrast underneath the table by using that yellowish light, and I use it yellow because it's the opposite of the blue and stuff like that. Okay? Just to show you that with life you just need to unleash your creativity and you can really enhance a lot the quality of your final presentation, of your final renderings. Okay? Yes? No? Questions? Because if not, for today I will stop here, and next week I will explain sunlight and how to use 3D blocks. So let me know if you have a quick question. If not, we will see next week, Wednesday. Let's see. Let's see. Let's say we have a concrete white box, an applied concrete white box. Let's say we have a concrete white box and apply the wooden texture to one of the sides. Then, what happens in my case is that the rest of the box is not white anymore. No, you have to send me your file and all pictures that you have downloaded from Google, because it could be whatever right now. So be so nice, send me both the file with the box and the textures that you are using, so that I can be a lot more precise in understanding the reason why this is happening. Okay, because it could be whatever. The light, where the light is, it could be the UVW map, it could be the material. So be so nice to send me both files. Okay? Because right now, I mean, it can be too many reasons. Great. Okay, for today, this is enough. It has been a pleasure. I'm so sorry from the beginning because it wasn't properly working, but it won't happen next time. I hope. Okay? Perfect. See you next week. Bye, everyone. And as usual, have fun, not too much.